Granger, what an honor to have you on the program, sir.
Thank you, Glenn. Thanks for having me.
You bet. So, if you can, let's start with for anybody who's not a country fan. Tell me what your life was like just a few years ago.
Living my dream, a dream that I've had for a quarter of a century, trying to play my music, play my songs, travel around, meet new people, run songs up charts, put out music videos. And we were doing it at a very high level and just felt like everything was right for me, everything I ever wanted.
And then one night, June 4th, you are, being with your family one last evening. You're spending it with your kids. You're headed to Nashville for the CMT Music Awards. Your daughter, London, is doing gymnastics. You're helping her. And what happens?
Yeah, I remember my daughter was doing a handstand in the yard, and she was having me spot her, and I was kind of holding her ankles, and the boys were playing water gun fight, two boys. And I just remember thinking, what a beautiful evening, green grass under my feet. Early June is beautiful in the state of Texas. And I just thought, soak in this moment because it won't last forever. And I was thinking in terms of the kids are going to grow up. They're going to go to college.
Right.
And these days will be behind me. But it was quiet in that moment. And I thought, where's River? He's our 3-year-old boy. And I remember looking around and I just thought, I don't know where he is. And that's not good when you have a 3-year-old, but yeah. we had a gated locked pool. And I looked and I saw him in the pool face down. And it didn't seem like it was reality. It felt like this is a dream. I'm in shock. How could this be? And I crashed into the pool and grabbed his little body, and I was expecting him to be coughing and nervous and scared. And I was going to say, buddy, what are you doing? How did you get in the skate? You're never supposed to get around here. But that's not what happened. He was lifeless and cold.
We've had a friend who this has happened to, and they're good people, and they love their children, and they're attentive, and it happened in a blink of an eye. Pools scare the hell out of me, because when you have little kids, it happens, and you're right there, and it happens that fast. You had to have just beaten yourself up. I've thought of this with my friend's tragedy. I thought if my wife were watching the kids, I would know that she was doing the best. But I don't know if I were watching the kids and it happened, that my wife would not blame me for the rest of my life. You know what I mean? It's so hard. The games this must play in your head.
That's exactly right. I've played those games over and over. But by the grace of God, my wife, not once did she ever even let it slip to say, how dare you? What have you done to our baby? And she could have easily done it, and she probably would have been right, because I was the responsible adult that day. And although it happened, like you said, in a blink of an eye, and I was just paces away, she could have easily have blamed me. She didn't, and I don't know where I would be if she had planted that seed within me of guilt. It was already hard enough with my own tricks my mind was playing on me, and the gymnastics that I was doing in my head of, you're guilty, you failed in the one thing that a father is supposed to do, and that's keep them alive till they're 18. And so that's what was going on with me.
So where do you go from there? I mean, how long did this, I know it's still with you, but how long did this just oppress you?
Well, it took me several months of trying everything I could. I was a big self-helper at the time. That stuff still kind of resonates with me, so I was leaning into waking up early and reading more nonfiction and trying to meditate and visualize and read my devotionals, and I was progressively getting worse instead of better. I thought, how could this is supposed to help me, and nothing was helping me. I was trying everything. I was exercising. I was trying to sleep right, trying to eat right, anything to stop the slideshow from happening in my head. And I say that in terms of the memories that were just kept repeating over and over of what I could have done. Like my mind was in a loop trying to close the loop, and it couldn't. And I was going insane. This was several months, probably 6 or 7 months, before just absolute rock bottom hit me.
And what was that?
That was a night, and I called in the book, I called it the darkest night of the soul. And I was in Boise, Idaho. And there were times, and there are times in grief when you could start feeling better. Sometimes you feel guilty that you feel better, but you say, you know what, today I kind of feel normal. And that was a day for me in December in 2019, and we were in Boise, Idaho, playing a show, and I was with the boys, and the crowd was great, and I just thought, you know what, this is the first time I felt normal in a while. And the band said, hey, we're going to go and have a few drinks at this little obscure bar. Let's just go reminisce some old times. So I went with them. I said, absolutely. That sounds like a great idea. Went and had some drinks. And as I was walking back out of the bar that night, I thought, I'm a little tipsy. I don't think I've been tipsy since the accident happened. And so then my mind started panicking and starting to prepare myself, trying to engage the things that I had learned in therapy that maybe could to shut down the slideshow. But by the time I got back to the bus, I started going into a panic, thinking, how am I going to suppress all of these terrible thoughts while I'm inebriated? It's not going to work. And so I just remember opening up the drawer and I pulled out my pistol that's always there. And I thought, this is the way. This is the way to finally end the slideshow, to finally find rest. And this was a voice that was not my own encouraging me with this moment. But
gosh,
hang
on just a sec. We got to take a quick 1-minute break, and then we'll come back to the story. But it's amazing how easy it is for darkness to slip in. You know, I had an alcoholic friend tell me when I first admitted that I was an alcoholic, he said, when you least expect it, expect it. And what he meant by that is exactly your story. You're feeling good, you think you're fine, you let your guard down just a little bit, and it floods back in, and it can kill you. And so now we're at the lowest part of the story. Let's get to the good side. So a lot of people would get to this point, and then it ends in one of two ways, usually. They put their life back together or they don't. But putting your life back together, you put it together completely differently. So let's start now. You're looking at the gun. Okay. What happens?
Yeah, I would say I might make a third category. I didn't put my life back together. My life came back together, but it wasn't my own doing.
Right. Yeah. I was insinuating that there is a third way, and I've never heard it before, but you're going to show us a third way. Yeah.
Yes. So I was in that moment. I had a Glock 9mm. I know that Glock very well. It has a double trigger on it, no safety. And so I know exactly where the pressure point is on that. Even in my inebriated state, I could feel as I applied pressure, okay, this is it. This is the point of no return in this moment here. And it seemed like 30 minutes. It was probably 5 seconds of holding it there. And I thought about my two older kids, Lincoln and London. They came to my mind. And I just saw their faces, and I saw my life and their life. And in that moment, I was crying, and I just said, Jesus, save me. My God, Jesus, save me. And in that moment, the slideshow stopped. All the visions stopped. And I dropped the gun onto the bed, and I fell down to my knees, and I ended up sleeping on the floor on my bus that night in all my show clothes. And I was a cultural Christian. I know that now. It was a heritage. It's something I grew up with. I knew the name of Jesus. I knew what he did on the cross, but I don't think I ever believed it. In fact, I know I didn't. because I didn't trust in him first. I trusted in the self-help books and every other thing I tried. But this sent me on a new journey of, okay, if this name is powerful enough to stop the slideshow, to stop me in my darkest night in Boise, Idaho, then who is this? What is this faith? So I went out on a journey, searching, reading, listening to sermons of what happened to me that night, how I was saved that night, supernaturally. And I ended up hearing a sermon in my truck one day. This was March 1st, 2020, a couple months after that event. And the pastor was speaking out of John 14, and he said, the disciple asked Jesus, Lord, why is it you manifest yourself to us and not to the rest of the world? And Jesus answered him, if anyone loves me, he will keep my word, and my Father will love him, and we will come to him and make our home with him. And then suddenly I thought, I knew it all right then. I knew I was saved, I was loved, I was redeemed and restored, I was healed. But in return, in the overflow of that gratitude, I was doing nothing. And Jesus said right here, if you love me, keep my word. That's how I know you love me. And I thought, what's his word? I don't know it. I don't know any of it. So that started where I am today, just absorbing his word, reading it, cherishing it. I went home, I got rid of all the devotionals and the self-help books, and I said, here we go. It's the Bible. This is what saved me. And if I'm going to love him, I'm going to keep his word. I'm going to know it all. And that absolutely changed the trajectory of my entire life.
So it is, again, in the typical story, it would stop pretty much there. Okay, he got his life back. He found the Lord, and he's now going out, and he's bigger than ever before. Tomorrow is the last performance on stage by Granger Smith, known as a country music singer. Where are you headed? Well,
as this unfolded, and I went back into country music, like you said, and I continued to live my life the way that it used to be, as now a redeemed, healed man, and I started meeting people, and they would say, I'm hurting. I lost my wife or my grandmother or my child or my job or my dream. I need your help. Can you help me? And I began to think more and more, I don't have time to sing country music. There's not any time for that. I need to be able to speak further. I need to be able to have more time with these people. And then I started feeling like, you know what, getting on the stage and just exalting myself and building up my name and having people glorify me, I'm not reconciling that with what Jesus says in the Bible about if anyone would follow me, let him take up his cross, deny himself. I can't reconcile that. And so that has eventually led to what is tomorrow, the last show as a country touring musician, and I'll be moving into more of a ministry role, writing more books, Lord willing, serving in our local church and getting out and speaking.
Because you went back to school.
And finishing up in seminary. That's correct.
This is just such an awesome story. You can see now why it wasn't, new. It was on best-selling lists everywhere. The only one that it didn't happen is the New York Times, and they're becoming much more blatant about all of this. You're about the fourth person this year that I've talked to whose book is number one everywhere. Except for the New York Times, it doesn't even make the list. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
I just wish you all of the luck in the world. I wish you all of the blessings you have. It's amazing. I don't have your story, but I have a story of my own, and I almost feel bad for those people that don't need the redemption, don't need that moment, because when you get that moment, it is such a miracle that it shakes you to the core. And I guess over time you could forget it. It's easier over time to forget it, but I came to the same exact conclusion. He did this, so all he's asking me is to just obey him. Okay.
Yeah.
You know, that's a pretty good deal when you are that low.
A great deal.
Yeah.
That's a great deal considering that night in Boise. It's a great deal, and that's what I want to tell everybody else about.
Well, I just want to just read this before you hang up. This is from the book. I think it's actually on the cover or the back page of the book. Like a river, life is full of twists and turns. Like a river, people pollute our world with their critique and criticism. Like a river, tragic events keep us dammed up. But like a river, we can find the courage to keep moving downstream. Rivers don't run on their own strength. They flow from their source. When we try to keep going on our own, we won't make it. But when we connect to the greater source, we'll find the strength and the faith to keep living after loss. This triumphant story of new life, birthed out of death, is like a river, and it is available wherever you get your books. And Billy Bob's, I think, tomorrow, right, in Fort Worth.
That's right. That's right.
All the best, and you might see a few of us in the crowd tomorrow, Granger. Thank you. God bless.